We are here with Tim Simons from HBO's Veep. And sometimes, Tim, we get some questions sent in for us to ask people. And we got a question sent in. I'm going to ask it. How soft are Patton Oswalt's hands?
Well, I was clothed the whole time. So really the actual, like, the texture of the hand matches whatever fabric is between my genitals and the hand. So I suppose it would be like a wool blend. He has sort of his hands have the feel of the wool blend pants that I was wearing.
Oh, that's good. And I think that question was sent to us from a Reed Scott. A Reed Scott.
That fucking son of a bitch.
So anyway, let's talk a bit about what with the stuff with Patton Oswalt this season. That was a sort of new territory for you with Jonah, and you got to act with Patton Oswalt. What was that all like?
Patton's fantastic as a guy. He was the first guy that ever talked publicly about our show. And we live close to one another. We live in the same neighborhood in LA, so I kind of bumped into him a couple times, and he's just a lovely guy and a very excitable and complimentary guy when he likes something, which is something that I really like about him. And when he came on to set, it was sort of a natural fit. He has obviously he has great comedic sensibilities and he has great timing, but he really likes being a part of an ensemble. I think, I don't want to speak for him, but he's a stand-up, and that can be kind of a lonely trade. And so I feel like he really enjoys being a part of a cast, and he fit in really quickly and had a lot of amazing ideas, and was also really cool with the fact that he was being tasked to grab me sexually. So yeah, it all worked out.
Mm. And how was then that scene where he had to deal with the other women who had been abused by his antics?
I mean, that scene was really fun to shoot. You kind of feel for other people who actually, you feel for the women that they call in, and they were all lovely and super into the joke. But you kind of feel bad that they would be in any way told that they look like me. But that one was a challenge, because you have to trying to weigh the new and the fact that he just doesn't want to talk about Teddy at all anymore. And then he also, there is an immediate and gigantic come down because he thinks that he's being called in for a job. And then to see that it's you're not only are you not getting a job, this is nowhere close to a job, and the worst thing possible is happening, which is that more people are calling attention to the Teddy thing, which is the last thing he wants. So it was a challenge. It was definitely a challenging scene, but I feel like we ended up having to shoot it twice because I think we missed a shot the first time we did it. They wanted a shot where we were all in frame together, and I don't think we got it the first time, so we had to completely redo it. And the worry is that you're going to miss something, that something would have come up while you were shooting that is just irreplaceable, that can't ever be matched, some just moment that just you can't recreate. And ultimately, I think we got lucky, and it ended up not being the case that some magical thing wasn't missed. Not trying to say that the scene was magical, but yeah, it was hard to do. It was fun, and we had to do it twice.
Yeah, I don't think any show probably not any show other than Veep can tackle an issue of sexual harassment in the office in that way because of who these characters are.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking with a friend of mine who does a lot of work with this sort of thing, and she brought up a point of the fact that Jonah he's an imperfect victim in the way that he is awful, and he has this history that is terrible. He's a bad person. He is a sexual harasser. But the fact that it forces the audience to be empathetic toward him when they don't want to be. And I think that there is a lesson in understanding that as we move forward, the idea of not every victim is going to be perfect, but that doesn't make them any less a victim. You still have to be empathetic toward them. And I think Jonah's a good example of that, because people hate the fact they have to sympathize with him for going through that. And that was something that I wanted to make sure, and we talked a lot about in the rehearsal process, wanting to make sure that it just didn't end up becoming and luckily I work with a lot of really smart writers, and Armando's a genius, and so we had a lot of smart people around this, but just making sure it wasn't, let's laugh at a victim. You know, like that's not fun. That's not funny. So finding ways for it to be horrible, for it to be over the line, but still not just be like, oh, look at this guy. He's getting abused. Ha ha ha. You know? Yeah.
No, for sure. And this season we saw Jonah back from his exile from the White House, back in action there. What was it like being back in the West Wing?
I think that no matter what, I feel like Jonah's particular opinion on that is it doesn't matter the president, it doesn't matter the politics of the president. He just wants to work there. Like that is ultimately where anybody would want to work, because it's the single most important address in the entire world. And as a performer, I really liked it. I loved that storyline of being able to go off and create Ryanthology, but it was strange. It was strange to really never play scenes in Eisenhower and to never play scenes in the West Wing for essentially an entire season, when so much of what I was used to was in there. But I really do like what happens when he comes back, when she is president, that when she was vice president, he has the same job now. He's still the liaison. But when she was the vice president, they all wanted him to go away. He would show up at the vice president's office and they all want him to go away. And now he has the same job and they want him to go back to the Eisenhower where they never wanted him initially. You know, no matter where they are, they occupy a space in which they don't want Jonah in it. And I think that's really fun.
Yeah, like we talked with Armando a couple years ago about Jonah, and he's almost got I think I likened him to the sort of the reverse Kramer, and I think Armando said like the reverse Norm from Cheers. Like it's not everyone's happy to see him enter the room. Everyone's like, oh my gosh. Like
yeah, they'll all say his name. They'll say it under their breath, and it'll be. The sentence will start with fuck. It'll be like, oh, fuck Jonah. Like, fuck Jonah's here. Like, they'll all say it at the same time. Yeah.
It seems like as president, though, Selena sort of maybe realized Jonah's value a bit more in being able to send him to the Eisenhower and send him to screw up deals that she doesn't want to go through and stuff. Like, it seems like Jonah was a lot more utilized this season by... Like she's sort of, oh, as president, you can use someone as incompetent as Jonah.
Yeah, it is funny that he has skills. He's not a useless person. It's just that the skills he has, nobody would ever really want to possess. Like he has an innate ability to fuck things up and turn people off. Like that is just a true skill. And I suppose it's a good thing to have somebody like that on your team if you really don't want something to go well.
And I guess something different for your character too this season was you had a partner in crime in Sam Richardson. Like, and you know, you sort of these two incompetent bubbles that sort of like fuel each other a bit in your own incompetence. Like what was that new dynamic like?
Well, Sam is incredible and is one of the funniest people that I've ever come across. And so just performance-wise, it's incredible because just to be around somebody that has a comedy brain like his just makes you better. And so for that reason, it was great. And I love the fact that he has, I've said this before, that I feel like everybody in this entire world is incredibly selfish and incredibly self-centered. And everybody has it in their own way. Selena is vain and everything runs through that, like her vanity. Mike is lazy and so he's self-centered in the fact that he wants everybody to slow down because he doesn't want to work as hard. And Jonah has his self-centeredness in that he just thinks he's the best there is. And Sam, who is the most positive and bright and happiest person in this entire universe, is kind of self-centered in this idea that, you know, everything should be positive, and he doesn't really see the negatives in any situation. And so I love that about him, that this very positive guy fits into a very negative world because of that. And just to have, like, you know, we're just kind of a classic foil. Sam is, you know, I tower over him. Like, physically, we're somewhat opposite, and emotionally we're opposite, whereas Jonah is all negativity and hate. Sam is all bright and happy and positive. And I can't say enough about him.
Yeah, he's very good at, like, when the penny takes a second for his character to drop all the time, and he's like always like, oh, okay, we'll just fix that. That's okay. Like,
Yeah.
oh. We just had the Deposition episode of Veep, a very different episode to any other episode. And, like, what is it like when you get a script and you're rehearsing and you're going through the process for something so different to what you usually do on a week-to-week sort of basis?
You know, that one was different in the sense of, like, I'm sure people have talked about the rehearsal process that we have in this, and that we have these rehearsals and script workshops and reads, and it's kind of this big collaborative process that's kind of ever changing. With that specific one, and this was one of the most fun shooting days I've ever had. It was also an insane day. We shot essentially that entire episode in one day. And it was like 54 and 3/8 pages that we shot in one day, which, I mean, like, I don't know if people are watching are familiar with film production, but I'd say on average, a show would do between 6 to 10 pages a day, depending on how quickly that show moves. So we shot, 54 is generally unheard of. And so it was an insane day. But what happened was we never saw that script outside of the depositions and the hearings that we were in. So it was all new to me when I saw the airing last night of what other people had said and how it was working together. I just saw the stuff that I was in, and Armando set it up so that we shot everything in order. All those depositions, as you saw them, were shot in order, chronologically. And we were in our trailers, we got in our suits, and nobody was allowed to tell us anything about the situation, the room, what was gonna happen. They set up the entire room. They stood us outside of it. They called action. They had everybody in there kind of warming up, getting sit down. And then when they opened the doors, we just went in and did it. We didn't rehearse. We didn't run it. We just went in and did, I think, 16 or 20 solid pages of that. And I think the reason being is that Armando wanted that feeling of our nervousness about the situation in general, and our lack of familiarity, and we didn't want us to understand how the room would sound with the microphone, stuff like that. So it was, all in all, like an incredibly different shooting experience for us, and one that I found really rewarding and really fun, despite the fact that it was a little bit scary at some points.
So you're in that. Your scenes were with Sam, were with Reed, and with Anna, and you guys hadn't even rehearsed together as you four, or had you gone through those lines before?
I think that we had gone through the lines. We had gone through the lines, but we never rehearsed in the space. We never rehearsed We had never rehearsed with the people that were going to be asking us the questions. They wanted all of that to be a surprise. They wanted the whole circumstance, the room, all of that to be a surprise. So we knew the lines that we at the table were supposed to say, but beyond that, we didn't know anything.
Yeah, because Veep has such a rigorous rehearsal process usually, in reworking the lines and adding improv and reworking the scripts and things like that. And we have spoken to some of the other actors about this in the past, but how do you find that process?
I find I love it. It can be not frustrating in the bad way. It can be frustrating in this great way of like of trying to crack scenes. If a scene isn't working, just getting everybody in a room and figuring it out can be a frustrating thing, because you're trying to work it out. This is what Armando always does, this hand motion. When something isn't quite right, he'll be like, we have to, and he'll make this hand motion. It just means we have to like find it until it clicks. But ultimately you get through that, and by the time you get to set to shoot it, all of the artifice or the things that would come off as fake or forced have been stripped away from it. And so that's one of the things that I love about it, is that, number one, I love the collaboration. It allows you to kind of put your own voice or your own thoughts into the creation of it. And then all the stuff that doesn't work is just not there. So you're not trying to figure out why it isn't working while you're on set with hundreds of people waiting. And we still do that as well. But most of it you find out in rehearsals. So that when you get to set, you're really focusing on, and you know exactly what makes that scene work and click. And it's, as a performer, you just feel really comfortable, which is great.
Can you think of like a great moment or a favorite moment that sort of come out of that process?
Like the one that comes to mind is one from season 1, and I'm sure if I could, oh man, let me see if I can think of one from this season. Like the one that from season 1, it was when Mike was pitching the jokes to the back of the chair and she's not sitting in anymore. I don't know if people remember that one. He's like pitching all these fireman jokes, and he doesn't notice that she's left the office. And he still thinks, and so when she yells at him from behind, he's super surprised. That was one that we just figured out in the space, because she saw that she would see Reed coming down the hall and could just leave, and wouldn't it be funny? So I watched them build that, and that was amazing. I mean, I think from this year, the scene where Jonah tells Leon West, or is on the phone and reveals that he's being molested by Teddy in the car with Leon West's mom and with Sam Richardson there. I think that one we found out it was supposed to take place like on her front porch, and they wanted to have this joke of the mom overhearing it and how awkward it would be for Sam and the mom to overhear this. But it was on the porch, and there would be like this we kept working on it as if it was on the porch and trying to figure out how far I could realistically get away and admit this while still being in earshot. And it would just realistically, nobody would ever admit that if somebody was right next to them. So then it got moved to a car so that nobody could escape the situation. So stuff like that will happen, where all of a sudden it's just like, well, the location of this just needs to change in order for it to build up to this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that would be an example of something that comes up in the rehearsal process. So we're not on set, like at somebody's front porch, realizing this should be shot in a car. That makes it, you're pretty much locked into the porch at that point if you're standing on it. So yeah, that would be an example of one.
I try to remember that scene. Like, is that the one where like he realizes throughout the conversation that more and more people are sitting in?
Yeah. And the fucking writers, this would be in like the way that they built that, the way that they revealed that more people were in the room, that it was not just Kent, but it was also Erickson, and then Sarah Sutherland, Catherine comes in, but he thinks she's been there the whole time. And then that last reveal of Sue, you just haven't seen her, and then she's there taking notes. Just the way the writers built that scene, it's just fucking incredible.
Yeah. We saw Veep this season be about the president. The president Meyers rather than the vice president. They didn't change the show name; it's still called Veep. How do you feel about that change, and how that's changed the sort of tone of the show this year?
It was an odd, and we talked about it a lot throughout the course of the season. The stakes are immediately higher, which I think just brings more conflict to the show, which is always engaging. And so I feel like people have responded to that, and they've been really engaged by the fact that there is this sort of heightened conflict and this heightened seriousness across to every situation that they're in. Performance-wise, it was odd because once you become president, the world gets so much bigger because you have to, I mean, like, even just as far as the people in the room, like, you always have to have a guy walking behind you with like the nuclear football. Like, now you just have to have that guy on set all the time. You need, like, the amount of handlers goes up tenfold. And now Mike has a staff, and now Reed and Anna have a full staff. Like, the world just gets so much bigger that we found ourselves, like, the first few seasons were essentially 6 people in a room, Sue's at the desk, and I come in every once in a while, and we have like these big group, like, long takes and group scenes where all of us are working together. And just because the world got so much bigger and because there was so much story to tell, those got truncated a little bit, and it was a different language. It was a different performance language to figure out, because we were seeing each other less in scenes, and the scenes were shorter because we had more story to tell. So it was a different performance language this year, but the fact that she's president just raises the stakes so much that I feel like people have responded to that.
Now, Armando has left at the end of this season, and you're having a new showrunner next season taking over. How did you take that news when you heard that he was moving on?
Well, Armando has talked in the past about stepping away, so it wasn't a surprise. I didn't know what was going to happen when it happened, but it wasn't a surprise because you know, he's always talked about that before. So I mean, like, you can't replace Armando. Armando is Armando, but the guy that's coming in, Dave Mandel, is incredible, and we've talked to him, we've met him, and we've talked about the plans that he has and running the writers' room, the storylines that he's coming up with and that the writers room are coming up with are fantastic. And he has sort of a perfect pedigree for this. He has an amazing comedy background, working on Seinfeld and then working on Curb Your Enthusiasm, and he has a knowledge of government. I may be wrong about this, but I think he studied government at Harvard, and when he was working at Saturday Night Live, Al Franken was his mentor. So he has a very good pedigree for politics and for comedy, and he's a super great guy, and I'm really excited about him coming in. It's a different voice, but I feel like change is good for creativity. Change is good for art. So, you know, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and like you know what's happened, obviously, but Armando's either going to leave him with Selena as president, or like Selena out of the stakes are very high for next week's episode as to where that leaves season.
Yeah. And I think and what they've come up with, the way that they've worked the final moments of that are pretty great. That's all I'll say about it. Luckily, it's coming up. I've been really anxious to see how this episode comes together, just because it was really fun. It was really fun to film. So I'm super stoked about that.
Yeah, no, like it's very interesting to see what's going to happen next season, because it's not like she can be vice president next season, like, because if she loses the election, sorry, it's not like she can be vice president next season, because it's the other party will have won, whatever party that is. With the Emmy Awards for Veep, you guys have done sort of so well in building each year on your nominations. Of like first year of the actors, it was sort of just Julia who broke in, and then Tony and Anna were able to get into, which was sort of nice that it sort of wasn't just the Julia show and she just won an Emmy every year, but other people getting acknowledged from the cast, and best series, you've been in the hunt every year. How have you found the acceptance of the Emmy Awards, and how important has that been for you and the show?
Well, I mean, it is one of those things where I think it's been really important as far as getting the word out about the show, getting more eyes to it, and that sort of recognition right off the bat really helps with that. It really, like, it just puts the name of the show in more people's mouths, and it's been a really fun thing, like, to see Tony win. To see Tony been nominated twice and he's won once. To see Tony win, his speech was incredible. And Anna, even though she didn't win, it was great to see her being recognized. Like, that sort of thing. Like, I don't think I don't think anybody goes into anything being like, we're the reason we're doing this is to win awards. But it would be silly to I think to say that the recognition of the work that you do isn't appreciated. It's been a really fun thing to be able to have that experience every year, to be able to go, and especially because our cast gets along so well, it's a really fun thing to go through together. I think Julia's won every year, right? She's won 3 in a row.
Yeah.
And I mean, she's just, and to me, that makes perfect sense, because I don't think that there is a better comedic performance out there than hers. And I don't even think that I quantify that, or qualify or quantify. Qualify? I don't think I would ever put the right word in there.
Finish the sentence.
I don't even do that with male or female. I just think it is the singular best comedic performance out there. She's incredible. And so that to me is no surprise. But it is actually pretty funny at this point. Like, we're sort of perennial losers, which kind of is a Veep-ish thing. Like, we're able to get to that sort of height and put on tuxes and go to parties and do all this fun stuff, and then we lose every year, and it's just really funny. There is something very on point, very Veep-ish about that.
Yeah, if it weren't for Modern Family, man, like.
They are an amazing group of people. They are super funny. Their show's fantastic, and they are a juggernaut. And it's fun. Like, we've now seen them every year, and it's like another great thing. Like, we see them every year, and it's like, we're so happy to see you and to lose to you again. It's great.
Yeah, it's like it gives you empathy for shows that are up against Frasier when that was winning Best Comedy Series every year, or The West Wing when that was winning Drama Series every year. Yeah. And you got 2 Screen Actor Guild. What? Sorry.
I was saying it's great, but there's no way you can push through it,
Yeah, and you got 2 Screen Actor Guild nominations for the ensemble for Veep, which that must be like a cool award, especially for your show where the process is so collaborative as a cast in putting together the final piece.
Yeah, I feel like we try to foster a really good experience on set. Obviously, the ensemble between the series regulars we've been working on since the first day of rehearsals, season 1, and it's made all the difference for how we communicate on set and in scenes and in rehearsals. Just knowing going into every scene that the rest, even if you completely bomb or completely fuck up, the rest of the ensemble is going to have your back in that, and that they are going to make you look better if you're just completely fucking up a day. And I think that we've also tried to extend that to the people that come in, the day players and the guest stars. We try to make them feel as big of a process and have as much of ownership of their roles as we do of ours. And it's something I think we really value and really try to foster that environment.
What was it like having Hugh Laurie come into that process this season?
It was great. All the Americans know him from House, so we were sort of in awe of his dramatic skills, and all the Brits. They all grew up watching Hugh and Laurie, so they all know, like, obviously his amazing comedic abilities. And this is sort of like an odd, right down the middle thing for him, where he is very funny, but it's also like he has these moments of steering toward the dramatic side. It's like a really fun way to see him. And he was great. He was very friendly, and we would hang out and go watch movies and stuff. He kind of was integrated into the cast pretty quickly, and was also very effusive about, like, when we would talk about him. He would deflect a lot of the praise that we were heaping on him, but he came in and he does all of that. And all of the improvisation that he does in an American accent, and so well that you forget that he's English. And when you're walking to the trailer at the end of the day, he'll kind of slowly get rid of the American accent. And then you have forgotten what a great actor he is. because you realize you just heard an American accent all day and just assumed he was, you know?
Yeah, he didn't Daniel Day-Lewis it and just was like American the whole way through the shooting.
Yeah.
We've got we're gonna be speaking to your buddy Matt Walsh tomorrow. Do you have any good questions for him?
Have him, oh, that's a good question. Have him ask him what the best order would be at ask him what the best order would be at Fork and Wrench.
Yeah.
And then ask him if he can do the Matt. I really love this thing that Matt Walsh does. It's like the Matt Walsh thinking face. Let him see if he'll recreate that Matt Walsh thinking face if he remembers it, just because it's one of my favorite things that he does. Kind of looks like this. It's great. But just have him do that.
Cool. We will do that. Last year he got us to ask Tony about the show he did with Pamela Anderson. So we'll get him back. We'll get him back with this one. Do you have just to finish off? Do you have a favorite moment from Veep? A favorite scene from the show from the past 4 years?
Oh my God! I mean, there are honestly, like, I have so much respect for the cast that I'm able to work with that I probably couldn't put it down into one. So I'm just going to use, oh, motherfuck, there are so many good ones. I was going to say I'll just use one from last night that I really liked. And then I forgot that there were a bunch of ones like Kevin Dunn was so great in last night's episode. I love that sort of aggressive and angry Ben that came out in those hearings. There was a moment that I thought was perfectly Gary Cole, like perfectly Kent, where he says something like they're talking about Lee, the staffer, and he says something like, I will add to that she was a fine staffer and was what Jimmy Cagney would have called a good kid. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that and I'll wait for a question. Something like that. Something about him acknowledging and apologizing the fact that he had not been asked a question was so perfectly fucking Kent. And I think I had to pause it just to laugh at that because God damn, he's so funny. Yeah. So that's out of a lot of them. That's just one from last night.
Yeah, I think Veep, like, even the smaller little lines are better than even the bigger moments. Like, that's where, like, the best comedy sort of is in the show, like, in my opinion.
Yeah, like the throwaway moments sometimes are the ones that end up being the most memorable.
I love the one where you're explaining what a meme is to the president, to the vice president a couple of seasons ago. Oh, just the back and forth.
Take your useless syllables and get out of here. I love it.
Yeah. Oh well, Tim, thanks so much for chatting with us about Veep. All the best for the Emmys for you and the show this year. Hopefully you can take down the Modern Family juggernaut this year. Not going
to happen. God bless him, but it's not going to happen. It's funnier to come in second or third or fourth or fifth. I guess they don't announce the entire order.
Yeah. Yes. Oh well. All the best, Tim, and yeah, have a good one.
Thanks. Talk soon.